pull that up. Hopefully it plays. Okay. Okay. Oh, it's like maybe wanting me to create a free account. Oh, here it was. See if that plays.
There's a lot going on. What if we take some time to ground ourselves and calm our minds? Let's take 5. We can go slow. Focus on one thing at a time to calm yourself and ground your mind. Let's take 5. Let's scan our surroundings using our senses. What do you see, feel, hear, smell, and taste? Whatever comes to mind. Let's take 5. What catches your eye in class? Los libros, los colores, la pared detrás. Y dime algo que puedas tocar. La silla o tu mesa quizás. Tell me what you're hearing. Is it loud or is it soft? Piensa en las flores, imagínate su olor. Think of the taste of ice cream from the ice cream truck. Take 5. Let's take 5. 5 things you can see. 4 things you can feel. 3 things you can hear. 2 things you can smell. 1 thing you can taste. Ya nos sentimos mejor. Con la mente en el presente, listos para aprender y jugar. Because we took 5.
And take 5 today at some point, if you haven't, this morning. But what a fun way to share a strategy that's been used in like cognitive behavioral therapy for many years, like that 5 count. Wonderful way to share families, engage little ones too. So I encourage you at some point to also take 5 today. Okay.
Lindsay, your voice got a little quiet. I think it's your mic's doing that thing, but it might come back. So let's see.
Hopefully it comes back, because I'm sorry, there's not much.
We'll give it a sec.
Is it better?
Your mic needs to take 5, I think.
Yeah. It does. It's annoying. Sorry.
Oh, you're back. You're back.
The only other thing I can do is like restart sometimes, but there's nothing. I've looked at all the settings. I'm sorry. Let's move on to the second part of our check-in, which is some self-compassion. I don't know about you all, but who has had kind of a crazy week? Like, not necessarily bad, not, but like kind of a lot. Like a roller coaster. And I'm like talking to others and they're like, yeah, it's been like crazy. Like so many good things have happened. So many hard things have happened. It's been busy. It went by quickly and it's been long at the same time. And I don't get it. So I hope that you take some time today and every day, but especially this weekend, for some self-compassion and self-love. So I have a deck of self-compassion cards, and I chose one. This one is called A Friend Indeed. This is something I remind myself a lot of when I'm not being so compassionate towards myself. What would you tell a friend? What would you offer a friend at the end of a hard day that you can offer yourself now? So just think about that. If it prompts you to share anything, I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes of space if you'd like to share anything. that thinking about self-compassion or the card has brought up for you? Okay, good, we can move on, but I hope you did some reflection of self-compassion and maybe even thought about ways that you can be more loving and compassionate to yourself and give to yourself. It's so important. We are like the hardest on ourselves. We're our worst critics in so many ways. Like the way sometimes we talk to ourselves in our minds or even out loud, like, oh, I dropped that. I'm such an idiot. I'd never talk to anyone else like that. So try to think about that. Try to think about the messages that you fuel your body, because each and every one of you are incredibly beautiful rock stars and just a, gosh, extraordinary, talented group of women that I know I can speak for Hannah. Both of us are honored to have joined this partnership and being able to learn together and with you all. My gosh. So, or if you just need a little cheerleading session, just call us anytime. We're going to be like, oh my gosh, you rock. Whatever happened, you did the right thing. You're amazing. You should go shopping this weekend and book a massage. Like, that's the kind of advice I'm going to give you. Okay, great. All right, so our presentation is the first one today. We're going to really examine the environment as the third teacher. And before I begin our presentation, Hannah, did you want to say hi or have anything to share with the group?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. So happy we're here. We did it. I think most of my announcements will come at the end, but thank you all so much for doing the registration. I hope those who did get a hotel room got a confirmation. If not, please let me know, but it should be easy peasy. I'll have more to say on it for sure, but so looking forward to seeing you guys in person. I think that's just going to add our last closing circle moment to this group. So very excited, but thank you guys for being here.
Thanks, Hannah. We'll miss those that can't join us so much, but we'll be holding you in our hearts. You're forever a part of our cool group. All of you. So whether you come to the last one or not, like it or not, you're a part of this family. So we will definitely miss you all. But we are going to have a great time to close out this amazing just community of learning and train the trainer projects that we've been lucky enough to be a part of. All right, so we have talked about so many amazing things on our SOAR journey. And actually, as I'm sitting here thinking, I would just like to share again the learning map with you all. I don't know if you remember our adorable little brain. Whoa. Like I knew I needed to magnify, but so just to remind us of the journey that we've been on together through the foundation of open-ended play. Like, who knew that open-ended play could do all of these things? We know the power of play in the early childhood world, that literally a child learns everything through play. So why not us too? That's really it, is that play is that important. It's not just because it's researched and because that's just what kids do or just because it's fun. It really is that important. And so on our journey, we learned about play. We learned about open-ended play. We engaged in lots of play ourselves, whether it was virtually or in person. We talked about those open-ended materials. Then now towards the end of our time together, we also talked about parts raising, how to, collect or engage, your community and maybe collecting some of those parts if that's a direction that you ever wanted to go. We've had lots of opportunity with reflection. We started our first couple of sessions with that really deep dive of ourselves and that self-reflective piece, and then we've used reflection and reflective practice throughout. We are going to really dive into the framework of reflective practice at our last session too, as well as have tons and tons of fun. I'm telling you, this is a really fun agenda and hopefully very restorative as the last time felt. Which brings up restoration. So we also looked at the place of family, community, professional restoration, engagement, and resilience, and how what we're doing and infusing play and building play as part of other things that we're doing supports our overall resilience, ours as our own resilience and self-care, but also as a community and families as well. And we took a good chunk of time to look at equity because it's that important, and really it could be its own project. And it should be really. So we really looked at that and how play can be such a grounding force to equity, and that we play cross-culturally, and it can support so many beautiful things in honoring inclusion, diversity, and equity. So it's like we're checking off the list, but not just checking off the list, because we do more than check off lists. We really infuse that into who we are, and it contributes to our own change and learning growth as we grow together. But also we can then take this into the culture of our centers, the culture of our workplaces, the culture of our communities, and really impact in so many ways. So we are going to have plenty of time to do some discussion this morning, and just really examine the environment as the third teacher. So I'm going to be kind of going in and out of the presentation, so we can have some good discussion. So bear with my screen shares and stops, but that way, if you have it on gallery mode on your Zoom screen, you can kind of see everyone in the discussion. Just kind of makes it feel like a room more so than staring at the presentation. Okay, so the environment as the third teacher. So here's our first discussion. What does that mean to you? Just take a moment, think about it, the environment as the third teacher. What does that mean to you? And then I'm going to stop share and we'll have a few minutes to chat. I'm going to throw the prompt in the chat also. Just a reminder. Any answer is a good answer. Nothing is incorrect.
I'll speak up if you don't mind. You know me, guys. I'll always talk. When I think of that environment as the third teacher, for me as a home visitor, I think about how am I supporting that family? How am I meeting that family where they're at, respecting their culture, respecting their environment as a family? So I think for like I'm the third teacher in that family culture, and I'm giving that support to the family as a whole and acknowledging every aspect and area of the family.
Great. Thank you, Bobby. That's amazing. Can I ask a clarifying question or a further prompt? Why do you think of yourself as the third and not the first?
Because I always tell my families that them as a parent is their child's first teacher. They are their first teacher. And
Yes.
I am the support to them. So
What
that's
a
why I
way,
would never.
yeah, that's amazing. What a way to empower the parents who sometimes feel very lost, including myself, to think about, wow, I do have the answers. Wow, I am here to teach my child and guide them too. It's not just the professionals in the child's life, it's me too. I matter too. Yeah, thank you, Bobby. And I'm sorry to keep picking on you, but who or what do you look at as the second teacher?
For me, I guess I would say the second teacher would be the bigger culture of that family. So like the grandparents, or I mean, for me, family is my bestest friends because I don't like have like that big family like that. So that to me is their second teacher, because those are the people that are in their life the most, and they're making like the second biggest impact after the family.
Awesome. Thank you, Bobby, so much. Thanks for allowing me to pick on you, pick your brain. Leticia, share.
I think it was so interesting because I thought of it as like like our agency as their second, like parents are first, we're second, and then like the third would be like their environment and their life experiences, just because our life like not determines, but it makes us, who we are. So just like either life experiences or like environment. So
That's amazing. Thank you, Leticia. See, all of the answers are correct. So just please, anything that you're thinking, throw it out there. Learning together.
I look at it different too. I understand where Bobby's coming from, because as a former home visitor, you bed that in your parents. You're the first teacher. But now that I'm in a different role in my position, I do a lot of observation, and I go into the classrooms, and that's where I assess the environment, the teaching environment. So I kind of look at it that way now. Like that's the third environment. Like I like to go in and see what the layout of the classroom looks like, and then support the teachers and, the materials that they need in that classroom. And I think whether they're planning an activity indoors or outdoors, that's their third environment to bring learning materials to them, to the kids.
Thank you so much, Desba. You're correct. All of it is right? And I think I'm just jotting down some takeaways in the chat, like that I'm hearing, and just two big takeaways I'm hearing right now is that the environments shift, maybe not in order, but maybe the last two. So always the first is the family, the parents, caregivers, always. Then we have sometimes classroom environments, home environments, family, culture, extended family, I'm speaking of culture, inside, outside, where your community is. I'm hearing a lot of those pieces. So I also see that it shifts the view, or the lens changes within professions too. Is it the classroom or the home? Where am I at as a professional? All right, let's hear some further thoughts. Tamara.
You basically said everything I was going to say, Lindsay.
Oh, sorry. I should have let you summarize it.
I was just going to say, like, it's both what Desba had to say and Bobby, right? Because the family, the parents, the, extended family are part of that environment, the classroom. For us as home visitors, I think that, we have to set up our environment ourselves, our screen. Like, what does it look like to be inviting, to want to talk to us, to want the parents to engage with us, and we're constantly like switching up things behind us to get the child to engage with us as well, right? And really empowering the parents to look at their home environment and what do they have that can be toys that they can play with their child with, and they don't have to run out and buy things. They have all of the tools at their fingertips just in their own environment, right? And so I think sometimes, like as home visitors, I'm sure Bobby does this too, like we're looking around and or they're walking around and we're like, oh, that's cool, did you ever think of like using that to do this with? And they're like, oh, I never thought about that. So I was just, you pretty much said everything that I was thinking better than I would have said it though.
No,
But
you
yeah.
just said it better. Totally. I also thought about what you said, empowering the parents, and then I was thinking about Desba's comment, empowering the teachers in their classrooms, or maybe a childcare provider in their childcare setting, really empowering them to think about their environment, how it's set up in their home, etc., classroom, wherever, to really support play and learning. Go ahead, Shamisha.
Hi. Um, so for me, when I was kind of thinking of the environment being the third teacher, what that brings up to me, because predominantly the setting that I was in was a classroom setting, and I would usually use the classroom as another teacher. This is where you can go. This is where you can't go. We can use these materials here. And it was nothing that I had to say. It was the environment said to you, oh, this is an open area where I should sit down and maybe look at a book. So you make those areas obvious or inviting for that particular kind of activity. And what I found was that kids overwhelmingly knew what to do. And it would be very interesting to see that kids knew, oh, this is here for me to put on, oh, it's a table here. I can put things on the table, or, oh, this is a comfy space. I can come over here and rest, or, so I think also kind of giving those nonverbal kind of cues and clues to kids in the environment by using it and setting up the classroom to say, this is an area that's quieter. And I don't have to ever say, this is a quiet center, because they feel that way. The lights are cozy, there's soft stuff there, and it makes you want to go over and be like, oh, yeah. So I think, to me also, that's another way of looking at the environment, really setting up and setting the expectations.
Wow, thank you so much. You all should just do the presentation. I should have just gave the prompt and then you all just talk, because this is everything. Wow. So how does the environment, classroom, home, community, how does that invite you to engage in whatever that is, or prompt you to think differently? And when we think about open-ended materials, we can even think about how things are provocations or prompts to really be creative and solve problems and step into challenging things together. Or questions, how we ask those questions too. And guess what? It's not just the setup, it's who we are and how we are being. Wow. Go ahead, Annie Marie.
So while we're talking about this, I was thinking about our families here at the clinic and where we're located, and that's distracting me. And sometimes we have resources within our community, like a public library, for example, and sometimes the city of Albuquerque comes in and they'll do discovery days, which are awesome because they go and learn about bugs, or they'll learn about, the last one was about powerful pollinators. I got super excited. And I started to reach out to the moms that I have, understanding that I would definitely have to be there because most likely it was going to be taught in English. And so sometimes the moms don't really, sometimes because of the environment, provokes fear in moms that there isn't a willingness to kind of explore the environment a little more, and to find these hidden gems, like going to the public library for an hour and just reading books with your kids, or taking advantage of the powerful pollinators. So I think that's another aspect that sometimes we don't really realize, is that there's a lot of homelessness, there's a lot of violence, there's a lot of prostitution. Now that it's getting warmer, there's a lot more, prostitutes on the streets. And so how do we work with families to help them? I don't necessarily want to say normalize, because we shouldn't normalize it. It's more, how can we help them kind of take those baby steps so that they can go into the environment and understand that it's not a perfect place. And this is the international district is just it's your first step. And later on, once you get settled, you'll be able to move somewhere else. But to realize that even though we have all of this other stuff, there's still richness in communities, even when we can only see like that picture. I was thinking about the picture that you gave us, what was it, a month ago, and like the house was messy, and you asked us what are the good things, or what are the positive aspects. I think that's something that I try to work through with my families, to what are the positive things that we can get out of this.
Absolutely. What are the strengths? Just to remind us, messy house. And that's on your Padlet for your resources. Thanks for bringing that resource back up and referring to that. Yeah, what are the strengths? Sometimes we look at situations, or when we're working with families, or even just an individual child, and we look at all the things that are stacked up against them, all of the things that are going wrong. But what are the things that are right? For instance, if you're working with a child that's having severe behaviors in a classroom, and you're wondering, gosh, what's going on with this child? It's so hard to work with this child. I don't know what to do. It can be very daunting. And maybe then we're finding out that the family is struggling with substance use, or homelessness, or access to something. We can start to understand what happened to the child, what happened to the family, versus what's happening here. Why is this child being like this? I just need this child out of my classroom, out of my space. Or but we can then associate those things with families as being detrimental. And yes, like Annie Marie said, we don't want to normalize something that especially is very unhealthy or unsafe behavior. But how do we accept with non-judgment, and knowing our biases, but being non-judgmental and compassionate, and looking at the strengths of that situation? Like maybe a parent is engaged in prostitution or use, and we can think, oh my gosh, that poor child and that poor family, and this is just so terrible. But maybe that parent really does try the best that they can with the capacity that they have, and really does want the best for their child, and really does love their child to the best that they can. It might look differently than our lives or what we would do. But how do you really celebrate that and build on that, and build on the strengths that they do have, and maybe even support them to make some changes too? So we're really looking at not what's wrong, but what's happened, and with a strengths-based lens, what are the things that we can build on and support? So that's great to think about that with the family and community aspect, for sure. So I just typed some brief takeaways of environments change with the professional. We might look at that lens a little differently, like say a teacher in a classroom, or a child care provider in a classroom, or in a child care setting, versus an early intervention professional versus a home visitor, etc. Caregivers are always first. Empowerment. We can use the environment to prompt or invite to engage in some sort of activity in that space. Culture is part of our learning environments all through the continuum, inclusivity and equity. And Janelle says, I truly believe families are doing the best they can with what they have. Oh my gosh, yes to that. And me too. Me too. Some days it looks great. Thank you, Bobby. Some days, like, you're just on it, like as a parent or a professional or, and then other days it's like, who am I? What just even happened? And, you leave like a tornado has hit you. We all are doing the best we can. And instead of being our best selves every day or trying to be our best selves, let's just be our awesome selves trying the best we can. And families, absolutely. I didn't know about home visiting until my daughter was well past the home visiting age, but I'm 8. Like that it would be free and accessible to me. So me now, I have a different knowledge base and a different capacity than I did 12 years ago. I have made the best decisions along the way, and my parents too, with the knowledge and capacity that they had at the time. Even though I might do things a little differently now that I know more, right? That's for everything in life. Great, thanks for the discussions. Let me get back to the presentation.
So Lindsay, I just wanted to add something really quickly that I think that I really learned in my own classroom. But one of the things was really utilizing our families when we were creating our environments and the families that we work with. For instance, excuse me, I had a child from Vietnam, and I've never been to Vietnam. I don't have a lot of experience. And I spoke with her mom, and she was so willing, and she printed out these beautiful pictures. Her and her daughter gave a presentation about Vietnam, and then we hung them around the room. But the pride that that little one had was just really amazing. And she was just like, and after that, I just learned, like, just ask the families. Like, it was so easy. They were so happy to participate and help us with our environment. And I think sometimes we think, oh, I don't know about that country. I don't know about that culture. Well, learn it. Go ask somebody who does. We have our best resources around us. And sometimes I think we get so tied up and so busy that we forget that. And so, like my boys, I've always said they look like their dad. They're very proud to be Black. And when I walk into classrooms, that's a thing that I look at and I talk to teachers about. I want my boys to see themselves in this classroom. I want them to see that they're valued and that they matter, just like every other child seeing themselves. And so I think that we have to really make that effort, and it does take time and effort. But when we do, our children thrive. So I wanted to add that really quickly. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And Janelle, I bet you, along with the other students, learned tons about that country and that family.
Oh, so amazing. I'm still cooking some of the recipes she taught me. And her daughter, I have to say, y'all, she speaks 4 languages. And they were amazing. And we're still friends till this day. And I had her daughter probably 15 years ago, and she's changed my life. And I've just learned so much about that part of the world that I never knew about, but just and also how much we have in common that I think a lot of us don't realize. So
exactly. Yes. And like, I loved how you pointed out too, that little girl felt so, proud, and what a way to empower them, but what's the best way, but rather to include them and celebrate them.
Yeah.
So beautiful. And Leticia added in the chat to build on this conversation that they have families that come and help label their classroom if they speak a different language. We did that in our center too. And in fact, because of our unique county, and again, every community is different. We were a primarily trilingual facility where we labeled and spoke in English, Spanish, and Dene. And we had staff members that spoke all three of those beautiful languages and celebrated that. And then we also had a small university in our community, so it brought many, many really cool people from different countries. And so we were able to celebrate if they enrolled their children in the center, their language and culture from many different countries. That was just really fun to learn about. So yeah, great ways to include the family and really celebrate and empower them, and language. And I added that language piece also into the takeaways too from this discussion, because celebrating language and culture in the environment, whether it's at home and with just the family unit or in a classroom. There we go. All right, so here's another discussion. Where is the environment, which we've kind of talked about already. So it can be the home environment, it can be outdoors, maybe outdoors at a park, or just outside on your apartment stoop, wherever that outdoor environment is, gardening, in a garden, hiking near the river, near the mountains, wherever that environment is, there is so much to learn from that environment. And then beyond that to school settings, childcare settings, early childhood education settings, and so on, maybe community centers, maybe even thinking about where is a space in your community that you celebrate cultural practices or religious practices. Where are those other learning environments to think beyond? Are we teaching in the space of culture or religion? And where is that outdoors, in a building of some sort? They're learning. Children are learning everywhere. We are learning everywhere. So the environment are all of the things that we have talked about. And also those concepts of culture and language and invitation and prompting, that's not necessarily a place or a space, but a concept. So asking ourselves, how does the environment feel? Is it welcoming, warm? Does it support relational learning? Does it support relationships? And really, again, thinking about where and what the environment is, applying these questions to all of that: home, in center, and community, outdoors, and so on. Thinking about communities and say a playground. How does the playground feel? Does it feel inviting? Is it safe? Is our environment safe, both psychologically, emotionally, and physically? And sometimes, unfortunately, our playgrounds are not safe for many reasons, whether it is old equipment that children can get hurt on, or in fact, maybe crime, something like that that's happening. So asking yourself, how does it feel? How can that, how can I impact that? And does the environment promote collaboration, partnerships, and leadership? So this question, I invite you to also wrap into that, into your learning environment, your teams, your workplace, things that you're involved in the community, volunteering, other spaces you might be in. Does the environment promote those feelings of collaborative partnerships and leaderships? Now think about in a classroom, for instance, is there a way that I can involve the children in democratic decision-making and giving them autonomy with decision-making? Is there a way I can promote leadership, tasks, or projects? Now think about the home. Can I allow my child to not only learn independence and autonomy and life skills through giving my child a responsibility, but also how does that promote their leadership within in the home, how does that impact their sense of pride or self-esteem or accomplishment? And does the environment feel inclusive? Again, back to that welcoming piece too. Do you feel othered or like you belong? Is it equitable? Is the culture within the environment equitable? Is it flexible, or is it very stern structure and rigid? And we all know with little ones, we have to be flexible, but also with adults, right? Also with human beings, that's life. We have to be flexible. So as much as structure and scheduling does help support predictability, also being flexible allows us to be relational and real. You all, we are supporting in all of our early childhood professionals, our future leaders, our future presidents, our future scientists, artists, big decision makers, lawyers, doctors, chefs, teachers, first responders, our beloved IT support, because without them, we can't do our jobs. And just so many more beautiful things. Our landscapers, our farmers, we are really, really engaging and shaping our future leaders. How powerful is it to look at these little beautiful faces of the children that we work with in community, in homes, in centers? Look at their beautiful faces and say, oh my gosh, that's our next president. That's our next governor. She can be a firefighter, or just imagining them and their little hopeful eyes and faces of the amazing things that they can do and the amazing things they will do and the people they will become. So how important are our environments to shape our future leaders? Don't be afraid to teach up in the home, in the classroom. Don't be afraid to teach up to those little ones, and then you can back down as needed. Don't be afraid to talk about those really hard things that we think are adult topics sometimes, like equity, for instance. Of course, we might not want to talk to them about like how difficult finances are or whatever, but maybe we can teach them about, saving money and budgeting and counting and introducing money and currency and early numeracy all at the same time. But don't be afraid to let them think hard about things and introduce things to them. Well, what would you do if, with those open-ended questions? And of course, in developmentally appropriate language, but we really are teaching them to really use their minds and think deeply and give them space to be creative to solve problems. When we talk to them when we ask them open-ended questions, I should say, and then when we do introduce things that can be really thought-provoking or difficult to kind of think about. And do they feel heard and valued? I just want you to keep thinking of the parallels of the teams that you work a part of and other community things that you're a part of, as well as working with our children and families or in classrooms or how you support in homes. Keep thinking of those parallels with all of these provocative, provocations that we're really thinking of and thinking deeply. Do you have a system in your classroom, or are you supporting that with teachers that children do feel heard and valued? And how do we involve them in decision making and giving them decisions to make? Do you want to wear the red shoes or the blue shoes, all the way to what would you like for dinner? What kind of shirt would you like to wear today? It can be simple things to more challenging thoughts and decisions, but really supporting that creative problem solving. No, there we go. Sorry. So asking ourselves, does the environment make them feel loved? I love those videos. This would have been, I should have inserted it. Actually, the perfect opportunity to show those adorable videos of just really amazing, caring teachers that maybe create some sort of check-in with the child before they even walk in the door, to not only allow the child to express how I'm feeling today or maybe what I need. So maybe they point to, I need a hug, or I need a high five, or I just need a fist bump, allowing the child to, have that autonomy to express their feelings in a way they need to. And then also for the teacher to kind of gauge how that child's feeling before they even walk in the door. I mean, that really shows the child that they matter and that they are loved and valued. And so thinking about, again, those parallels, do they feel loved in a classroom, childcare setting, and home? And how do we support that? How do we support or empower parents to build relationship? Because sometimes they are like the most loved, but parents are not really sure how to establish that connection or attachment or express those feelings. So does the environment inspire creativity, imagination, problem solving, and so on? And does it create a sense of calm, or is it chaotic? Or are some spaces and places supposed to be chaotic and have a lot of energy, and some places and spaces, maybe like the reading area Shamisha was referring to earlier, is it more dimly lit and invite calm and kind of maybe a lower tone and voice and quiet to that space? Or do they need something where they have an opportunity to completely decrease their stimulation? So let's open up for a little bit more discussion. As early childhood professionals in so many amazing fields, what are your recommendations for environments? And whether they're at home or classroom, or even thinking beyond that to community. Oh, thanks, Bobby, for adding that. Oh, and Despa added sports. Yes, definitely. Those are environments and cultures, right? Like, it's like so much. And so much learning happening. Oh my gosh. Encouraging parents to utilize their large or small space to the full capacity, using items within their home to build an outside structure. Yes. Opening parents' eyes to see objects beyond their use. Oh, yes. Like, that pot is not just a cooking item, but also a really cool drum. Maybe even a hat. I have to ask.
Oh, sorry.
So sorry, Bobby. One other question to think about, and then I'll turn the mic to you because you got this. I think we're missing one other piece of the environment as far as who to learn from. We talked about parents, families, but did we talk about the other peers, the other students, siblings, cousins? So they are a part of the learning environments too, not just in a sense of being a part of that space, but that's who we learn from. The power of other children, learning from other children. Wow. Yeah, go ahead, Bobby.
I was just gonna say that working with different types of families and stuff, like families who live in apartments, I often hear it's just like kind of repeated, like, we don't have a backyard, and we can't do those things that, families, and it's a lot to load up and go to the park. And so, that's why I added that, because, I try to get parents, like, you can still make a slide. It'll be very safe. Like, we can still, maybe you can't make a swing, but, you can be the swing. And so just trying to get families to understand that instead of being distraught or feeling like, oh, I'm not providing the best because I just live in an apartment and I don't have an outside space. giving them that strength and giving them that power, like, you know, let's get your toddler to figure out, like, how can we make a slide? What can we do? And, you know, having both of them work together, so their mom's really seeing the environment through the eyes of her toddler, and then the toddler's like just learning from mom. So that's really where my mind was going with that, is that I see that a lot with families that, you know, live in, or family, you know, I've worked with a lot of homeless families, and it's like, well, you know, I don't have that and stuff. So just being able to say, hey, let's look at these objects in a different way, and let's see how we can pull play and learning out of them. And then just to end, I tell my parents that all the time, Lindsay. I'm like, believe me, the power of positive peer pressure at this age is amazing. You know, if you're struggling with potty training, as soon as your kid's in Head Start and they see other kids, they're potty trained. You know, I remember that as a Head Start teacher. It's like the parents would say they're not interested. Immediately, as soon as they see their peers, it's like, oh, I want to be a cool, like, so the positivity in peer pressure at this age, and, you know, probably into elementary school, is really amazing. And really, you know, I encourage families, like, that's good. Like, let them learn from their little peers. Like, that's a good thing. Right now, it's positive peer pressure. We're not having to regulate and boundary it like we do very much when they become teenagers, right?
Yeah, totally. That's interesting to think about, like, that term and how it can have really some positive effects on us, like even modeling and mentorship in a sense too can develop from that peer learning and things like that that happen. That's amazing. Bobby, thank you for being a voice. I know all of you are, to your teams, families, and children, to empower them to think about in creative ways the possibilities and what they already have. Again, strengths-based, thinking about what they already have to work with versus what they don't have or don't have access to. And think about all of the amazing things that they still can do and support access to. You know, is it that family that lives in that apartment that doesn't really have an outdoor space, but maybe you can, you know, look with them where the closest park is that's safe. Is that in walking distance? Do they have access to a park in their community? And thinking about that, or maybe an open space of some sort. Doesn't necessarily have to be a playground, right? There can be really fun learning happening everywhere. So thank you for being those empowering voices to families, and think about the strengths that already exist. And I shared a story with Hannah, and I may have with Janelle too. I chose not to take photos of this, but recently visiting Mexico, and where I visited was a very humble rural farming community, one of the places I visited. And so access to playgrounds and community centers, maybe in the plazas of smaller pueblos and towns and villages, but not necessarily on the outer skirts, right, of those more rural areas. So how do kids play? I mean, there were baseball fields, and there's access to those things even in those small rural areas. And actually, not long after that too, I had the amazing opportunity to visit Kristen and her community, and also drive through from Farmington to Gallup through the reservation, and think about the beautiful rural spaces of the Navajo reservation, and the Navajo communities out there, where there are access to community centers and places like that, but maybe a several mile drive to get there, right? So how, even if we don't have access to those more formal playgrounds and structural places, basketball courts and gymnasiums or baseball fields and things like that, how do children play, and how do they engage? Well, it's open-ended, right? They can just play in, you know, the the dirt and make like really cool racetracks, ride their bikes if they have access to those things, play games with sticks and balls and open-ended materials, right? Like we are talking about. So where I visited, there was access to a playground at their local tiny school, like 3 rooms, tiny school, and multiple aged classrooms and graded classrooms. Also, just a little shout out to multilingualism. A little girl that I interacted with was in 6th grade, knew a lot of English, of course, home language of Spanish, but was also learning Japanese in school. So building on the beautiful strengths of not only exposing the children to multiple cultures and languages, but in a rural community. Sometimes we think of the lack of access to things in rural communities versus, again, celebrating the strengths and what we can learn from them. So huge, that was just beautiful. But she lived a couple of miles from her school to even access the playground, you know, after school hours and whatnot. But her and her brother had created their own playground in the mango trees that they lived under, with hay baling rope. And so they, again, recycled, and it was free, lived very humbly, were, you know, no running water, collecting rainwater for their water use, showers, etc. You know, cooking outside, did have electricity, but not many of the comforts that we experience. But we have many rural communities within our own state that live very humbly and don't have access to running water and things like that. So, you know, so knowing that they don't have a lot of money to, you know, build or buy a play set, a swing set that many of us have just either really quick access to, or we have ourselves, and that's amazing. But they used open-ended materials and created their own playground with hay baling rope. So they created swings. Maybe it was like a double roped swing that they would hang on with both hands and swing out. Maybe it was a swing that they used a bike tire for and, you know, used pieces of wood to create a little like standing swing, you know, an old tire to also create a tire swing. And you know, just really like hammocks in the same area that were not hammocks, but created from fishing net. And just like the kids would just play and swing on those all day. And it was really beautiful. They had their own playground and the kids built it themselves. So they tied the ropes together and you know, really created their own open-ended playground. Like, how cool is that, out of recycled open-ended materials that many of us would discard? So I think that's really creative and beautiful. And Shamisha, thank you. Okay, I read Bobby's. The environment will need to change with the children's development also. Yes. Oh, there's some claps. I love that. I appreciate the way you have spoken about the family. You didn't say impoverished, you said humbly instead, and that alone is powerful. Oh, thank you, Shamisha. I think that's a good point to take away too, you know, how we interact, how we are with families. And in so many ways, even if, oh, someone gave you a fire. Who was that? Bobby, I like that. That's a great reaction. That's fire. Yes, it really is. Because in so many ways they are so much richer than I am and live in a magical place of endless open-ended opportunities. So I think viewing them and viewing a situation or a family or a child in that way, first, the strengths, messy house, what we've been talking about, we really can celebrate what they already have and build on that and learn from them too. instead of coming down at them as an expert. Yeah. Thank you. Well, I'm going to share a video, but if there are any other thoughts as we're closing out before we move to our break, you know, definitely feel free to come off mute, but let's all say a little powerful prayer that this video works. So as requested, the bottle in the fence video, but what a great way to see an environment teach so many skills, and on top of that, and just allowing the kids to have an open-ended activity that they were engaging in, but safely.
I got this. It doesn't fit. It's okay. Shreya, let's go get Gabriel. We can't. We have to stay here and watch out. Yeah. There's a spider. We need spider webs to capture Gabriel so he does not run away. I'm not Spider-Man. I'm Spider-Man. Spider-Man, no, go. I'm not. Daniel, a little help here. Okay, I'll help. Oh, good job. Down there. Here, somebody hold that and we hold that. We're doing it! Yep, I think we are. Almost done. I'll help. Let's go! Do it! It is not coming. Guys, hold my back. Yay. Stop! Hey, sir! Leo! Help! We need more help! Shreya! Guys, let me come. Go, Mia, go! Go, Mia, go! No, we're getting it! Guys, I have us alone! Guys, stop for a minute! Stop! You guys stop. Guys, go hold the end over there. Daniel, go hold the end over there. Madeline, Freya, Avery, go hold the end over there where Lily is. Avery, go hold the end. Hold on, guys. Not yet. Let it go. Guys, the hose. We can put it. Guys, let it go for a minute. Oh no, the bottle. Guys, let it go. Stop.
Gabriel.
Let go. I got it. Guys, let it go. Here. Go tell him to let it go. Avery, you might want to pull it back. Now, let's get over there. Here comes some more. Go. Good. Where are you going? Oh no! Go! What are they doing? They're trying to get a bottle. No, I don't know. Yeah, and they're trying to pull it out. Get it. Do it. Go to the left. Go to the left. Let's go. Go straight. towards this so you can get some credit. As well as take a look at those Shutterfly books that you have. It'd be great if you guys could sign up for your own classrooms to help create those. That would be a lot of help. Thank you all. Keep doing it. Bonnie, will you put me down for Shutterfly in my class? I got it. Guys, I'll go get some help. Pardon me? We can only reach. Wait a minute, I have an idea. We need bamboo! We need bamboo! Look. Real. I got it! You have to pull it! Put this on the end! We need to do this. Oh, put it through here! Look at this! I can put it up. Here, I have an idea. I can't pull it. On my hand here. We can't. We need more help. Oh, I'll pull it. I'll go get more help. Oh, yeah. More help! I need more help! Now we need to do our person. Okay. Oh no. What else?
Yay, they got it, right? Who else was cheering them on? Right? Oh my goodness. Some of you may have seen that video before. Every time I have seen it, I have seen something different happening in it too, or picked up on something else. So I'm opening it up to you all. What did you think?
I thought that those kids learned so much in that time, and it could have been they might have missed it if the teacher said, "Get off the fence. That's dangerous. What are you guys doing? Leave the bottle." Like, the teacher really gave them the opportunity to have that learning experience, which is amazing. That she was like, "They're safe. They're good. I see the value in this," and she allowed it to happen.
Yes. Fire to that teacher, right? So some of those kids now, because that was back in 2014, are driving, graduating high school now, maybe going off to college about to. Oh my gosh. Think about those little leaders in that group.
Every time I watch this video, I like associate with a different kiddo. I don't know why, but it's like for a minute when the little boy in the beginning, he just like cheers them on. Like, he really doesn't do much, you know what I mean? But he's just like, go, 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 you can do it. And I just feel like sometimes you're that little kid, sometimes you're the problem solver with the hose, like bringing it back, you know what I mean? But there's something about that today that I really clicked with. But I think I love like the thought process of like, I have an idea, like the amount of times somebody said that. And it's like they brought it all together and it worked. So loved
Oh,
it.
I love that. Hannah, you made me think of, we need all of those different like roles, group dynamics, and personalities to make something work. We sometimes just need the cheerleader to let the doers do the doing, you know, and then we need, but like otherwise we wouldn't feel motivated to do that. sometimes we need someone to take leadership and delegate or think of strategies. Sometimes we need just kind of, folks just like assisting. And what you just said was so powerful, how different days, different projects, different times of days, different areas in our lives, different environments. Remember the environment. How we can cross between those roles or identities too. Different moments. I might be a leader sometimes, but sometimes I assist, sometimes, and we need all of that. Wow, you really made me think about how we shift between those roles. Anyone else?
One thing that I noticed that I really loved about it is that, first of all, the wisdom of that teacher to just remain silent and watch. Like that alone was like, that could be a whole day of just talking about knowing when to not interrupt the learning that's happening. And I think sometimes we think I'm the expert, I'm the teacher, I'm the one who knows. Let me tell you guys what to do. And we rush in to solve a problem instead of allowing the children to process. And you'll see there were so many different group dynamics going on. And this child was taking charge. This one had the idea. This one was helping with this. Then everybody shifted because their goal became one goal. And with that, they were all comfortable playing different roles and then moving into a different role. Like some of them transitioned from being right there by the fence to just watching and letting the person with the idea have it. And I think that that's a great testament to that, to the teacher as well, to just know when to not say a thing. And, because I mean, how many of us would have just been like, well, if you put it underneath the fence, then you could,
Or
and
let me go around to the gate and get it for you.
right, or let me walk around and get this for you guys, because this is, but we forget that just giving kids that space allows these kinds of natural, authentic learning moments to take place. And she didn't have to do anything but hold the camera and be quiet. And sometimes that's our role too,
Powerful lesson. Sometimes us adults just need to be quiet, right? And step back and let them take the lead. That's the other part of the environments, the child directed, play or learning and following their lead on that. Oh my gosh. Please and thank you so much for shouting out that teacher because she really just allowed them to go forward. We are a helicopter society, right? Helicopter parents, helicopter, teachers. And then also there's so many safety issues and liabilities and things to kind of be scared of if you have a childcare center or a preschool education center like what these kiddos were at. No, get down from the fence. No, don't pull that out. You might scratch yourself, and so just the power of allowing them to be able to explore their environment and not have those restrictions and the learning that happened there with a bottle. Oh my gosh. And think about the building on to you can do. So why were they so fascinated with the bottle? Were they talking about recycling? And what if they weren't talking about it? Now maybe we can talk about it. That would be a great opportunity. Here's the recycling container. This is why we recycle, or and talk about the earth and science. And oh my gosh, it could be never ending with just that one activity. Go ahead, Bobby.
I was thinking what Shamisha said about just the environment and allowing how the teacher just allowed that to happen. And the environment might be different if, the situation was different or other things. But I think of that a lot. I have these conversations regularly with my daughter in regards to the way I did things when she was raised and how I raised her, and then with my granddaughter. And she, she's constantly saying, Mama, you would never, let, and I have to really, really remind her that the environments are very different. When I was raising you, I was a single mom. I had 5 kids. I was doing this. I was going to school. Like, the environment was one of a lot of high stress, a lot of high anxiety. So I missed out on those, like being present in the moment, right? Because it was just, the environment was just survival.
Yeah.
But now I've evolved, I've learned, I've grown, I'm in a different place, my environment's different. And I'm not trying to lecture you and be better, but honestly, I want you to be better. And I want you to recognize that it's okay. Yes, if you guys would have spilled the milk on the floor, I would have probably lost it depending on that day.
Oh, yeah.
My
Yeah.
granddaughter.
I just did. It was
Yeah.
in fact Mother's Day. I was crying over spilled milk, literally.
Yeah.
In the living room.
But
Like,
that's
we're
the
supposed to have
power
drinks
of
then.
that environment, that power of just like, and learning and growing. And I know I have grown so much, but I'm constantly having to bring that back for my daughter. I imagine I'll probably have millions of these conversations as, my 5 different kids start having kids. But I always want to stand accountable. Like, yes, I could have done better. But like we said before, I did the best I can with the tools I had and what I was given. And at the end of the day, I love you guys, and you guys all survived and we're safe. Hey, that's it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Again, environments change as things in our lives change, or knowledge or access to, or our privilege changes, maybe coming out of poverty changes. So many things change in our environments as little ones grow, and as we grow and continue to learn. Go ahead, Tamara.
I really love that Bobby mentioned that, because I think that for us as home visitors, part of our job is reading the environment and what the family is going through and where they are. So we might have a plan of something we want to bring, and if that family is not in that place, like, we need to be able to read the environment and say, what do they need in this moment? And I love that, because I'm right there with you, Bobby. Like, there is times where, like, I can be like, we're not gonna cry over spilled milk today, guys. And then there's times it's like, wow, oh my gosh, what happened, right? And a big part that I think that we don't take into consideration, or we don't really talk a lot about, is like parent burnout, which is a real thing. And we talk about burnout with work, we talk about burnout with everything else, but people get burned out when they're passionate and they're invested in something. And what are you more passionate and invested in than your children? And so I think, like, that's something that when we're working with families and we're working with children, we really need to think about that part of the environment as well.
Love that so much. Yes, parent burnout. Oh my gosh. We just associate burnout with work, and we don't think about how it can impact our personal lives too. Caregiving burnout. If I'm not a parent, but I care for a loved one or an aging pet, that can be really hard. I mean, these things are real. Okay, y'all, one last thing to close with our environment as the third teacher. I don't know about y'all, but I kind of see it as breaking through hierarchical first, second, third kind of stuff. As to all of these things that we've talked about, whether they're actual physical spaces, concepts, or interactive, interactions, supporting that relational environment, learning, safety, all of those pieces that we talked about, as actually being a continuum of learning environments that all work together as a community of environments, but highlighting the family environment as the first, because again, empowering as the first teacher. You are your child's expert, those families, but also that's the environment that little ones spend the most time in, right? So, but actually how all of this almost maybe wraps around the family. All of those learning environments are all in the same continuum, but wraps around that family and that little one in the center. So I challenge you to think about that too. And again, as I mentioned in the presentation, continue to recall those parallels of how do I create those cultures and learning environments within my team, within the trainings I might lead, within the parent and family and community events that I might be a part of. Really think about that. How can I lead and model that? Okay, y'all, let's do a 15-minute break, right? 10
Yeah,
minutes?
that sounds good. We'll do, how about 13 just to make it a little bit
Oh,
even.
I love that.
So 10.
Lucky number Friday the 13th.
Ooh,
Okay, see y'all back at 10:40. Okay,
sounds great.
thanks. Welcome back, everyone. Hope you got a nice little breather and break. How are we already through halfway of our last session? Virtually. It's coming to a close already. Okay, so now we're going to dive into our last topic for today, which is change the way you view emotion. I'm going to, Kristen's not here, but if she does pop back in, apologize to her in advance because she's heard this presentation. So this is where we're going to end our virtual sessions, but also for the week, and think about some of these things into the weekend for you, how you can welcome feeling and emotion and feeling the feels, I know, but also change the way we view them. Okay, just a little thought to think about. All righty. So as always, and we just came back from a break, you know, I started this presentation when I did this recently with just a moment of mindful self-regulation or transition time. As we start every virtual SOAR session, especially. But so if you still continue to need to fill up a drink or, you know, do something, now or as we're moving forward, always feel free to take care of your needs as needed, at any time, or if something's even a little emotional or activating, to just turn your camera off and feel free to take some time to reflect. And also, if that ever happens, please always feel free to circle back to myself or Hannah, so we can be supportive to you. Because sometimes we do take deep dives into topics during parent trainings, family events, team trainings, trainings that we may provide in this space, but we always don't quite have the time, or maybe the facilitator, even us, or you may have been in a situation too where we didn't pick up on something that was occurring in the moment, but we want to be supportive and create that safety for you. So, you know, when we're talking about a topic like emotions, trauma, ACEs, in the same vein as trauma, you know, self-reflection, things like that, equity, we might want to consider just reminding our participants about this need for transition and being present, and how it's that's supportive of you being present and taking care of yourself, but also that sometimes things can bring up things for us, or sometimes as facilitators we can say the wrong thing and it can really activate someone. So a nice reminder to folks, not only helps to create safety and courageous spaces, but it also can really support that relationship and learning. So just a reminder that human beings need transition moments. I know I've said it to the point where you all have this mantra in your head. We really always think about children and their transitional needs and setting up success for transitions. But somewhere along the way, we forget that adults need transition time and supports for setting up transition, and that just in general, human beings do, just like play. And why? And at what age, and Shamisha and I were talking about this just the other day, at what age does the world tell us, okay, you're no longer a child any longer and you have no time for play? Why do we adult so hard we forget to play? Where's that age cutoff? And sometimes it's even cultural, right? Where there are significant cultural events that happen, even symbols of handing over a toy or a doll or a truck or something to a younger person. Culturally, that really gives us those cues as we're growing up into young adults that now it's time to stop playing. And so, yeah, I mean, there literally are cues that tell us that, but we can incorporate more play into our life at any age. All right, so these transition moments, back to mindful moments, whatever you'd like to refer to them as, presence moments, breaks and things, they really help to regulate our system and the mind to be open and present. And this allows for optimal learning. We absolutely need support with our social, emotional, and relational evolution, regardless of what age. And I know that we can all attest to some adults actually need more support than sometimes the kiddos that we work with, right? Or where again does that happen where we're teaching at young ages about sharing and collaboration and group thinking and working, that there seems to be a separation of I forgot what I learned when I was 4. Because that literally happens. Or maybe we just need reminders along the way. So the outcomes of today, we want to create a courageous and invitational space as always. We want to also create a space that encourages deep listening and that feels safe. Be able to really identify emotions and tease them out and disconnect with the stigma, guilt, and anxiety and find connection and validation and strategies to help us feel the feels. Don't get scared. Don't leave the group. When I say feel the feels, I know it sounds sometimes hard, for sure. And also find reframes to change your point of view about our emotions. So in a quick self-reflective activity, this is an activity that Circle of Security uses. So if you're familiar with that curriculum, you may have done this yourself or you may have facilitated that. Feel free to even right now, whether you have your notebook or iPad, and want to actually draw this and do this activity, or just even think about it, where things might be, or at what level you would like to engage in this activity. Again, it can be kind of heavy to think about sometimes how we were raised, but this is a really powerful activity to think about for yourself and a deep dive of a self-reflection. And I also add this disclaimer, this is not to blame or shame our childhood, our parenting, whoever raised us, but rather remember that folks usually parent how they were parented, and then also do the best, just like we were talking about earlier, do the best they can with the resource capacity and knowledge that they have at that moment. So I hope that if you engage in this activity, it feels more like a reflection and not so much of a blame or heaviness that comes upon. But I absolutely understand and welcome those, this to be a safe space for you to feel the feels, whatever that brings up for you. So if you're joining along and you're drawing on a notebook beside you, or just thinking about it, think about the circle, the image that you see right in front of you. And let's think about these core emotions: curiosity, joy, sadness, fear, anger, and shame. Of course, there are many, many other emotions as we're going to dive into a little bit. But these are kind of some core emotions. And so if your childhood and how you were raised supported any of those feelings belong inside the circle. If some of those feelings or emotions were sometimes supported and sometimes not, those belong on the line of the circle. Kind of sometimes they were and sometimes they weren't. If they weren't, they belong outside the circle. So just take a moment to think about that or work through that activity. Okay, so this again is self-reflection. I know just sharing for me, things like anger or shame were not really dealt with my childhood. So that was way outside the circle. And maybe that's also a measure too, is like how close to the circle and how far out. And I was definitely raised with like, go to your room, deal with it on your own, regulate on your own kind of thing. And likely my parents were too. And things like joy were inside the circle, no problem. Joy was easy, that's fun. Or sometimes how we push kids to be okay because we want them to be in an emotional space that's easier to deal with, like joy. Sadness, fear, kind of on the line maybe, and curiosity the same. Because sometimes those more not difficult, we don't want to put a measure on emotions as being positive or negative because they're all a part of the human experience. And remember that as we come to a close, it's not bad to feel sadness. It's not negative to feel anger. These are all legit feelings that are a part of the human experience. So the more that we put the association of this is a good feeling you should have, and this is a bad feeling, we create toxic positivity. We again are more comfortable with those emotions. And then we kind of forget about these emotions. So we teach our kiddos, we teach ourselves to just stuff those down and move along, not feel them. So remember that as we move through the presentation too, that it's okay to feel sometimes the more intense emotions versus sometimes the easier emotions that just come light and naturally. So joy is one of those more light, natural ones, whereas anger or shame can be more complicated and intense to tease through. So that's where something like this comes along. Sometimes this helps us set up an opportunity to really, again, tease out what we're feeling. So if you start at the beginning of the wheel, this is just a visual representation. The places we go when, maybe we're hurting. What's exactly going on here? I know I'm hurt. I don't know how or why I'm hurt. This situation happened and I don't understand why. So then when you branch out, it really helps you tease it out. Am I feeling a sense of grief, sadness, despair, hopelessness, anguish? Maybe I'm being really self-critical on myself. So we started our mindful self-regulation with self-compassion today, and I'm not having such good self-compassion, and I'm kind of assessing myself and being critical. Is that coming from pride? Was my pride hurt? So this really helps us kind of identify the larger umbrella that's happening and then tease out those emotions or feelings that we might be having. When life is feeling good and we're clicking along, we're feeling that joy, happiness, calm, contentment, gratitude, or maybe one of those areas, I'm feeling life is good because I'm feeling content. So this is just really a way to kind of tease things out and give names to emotions. So we see that we have more emotions and feelings than just those core emotions and feelings. Identifying emotions and experience is the human experience. So Brene Brown tells us that in her experience working with clients, the ability to name this emotion or that experience is essential to being able to process it in a productive and healing manner. So the power of identifying the emotion is that impactful that it can help us move through and move into a healing manner. So let's back up and remember our equity presentation and conversations surrounding diversity, equity, and inclusion. and say even thinking about critical race theory and things that we talked about within that section of our project, when we are able to talk about things and process it and process the emotions, that helps us find relatability, create connection and relationship, and move forward in a healing manner. So whether it's a personal or collective thing. So when we hear people say, why do we have to keep rehashing this? Why do we have to teach this? Why do we have to know about this part in our history? Why do we, those pieces? That is why. We can't collectively move forward as a healing community together without acknowledgement and without ways and spaces and places to safely process that. So we can think about that on the large or our own human experience, and think about that again, those parallels when supporting little ones. We start to teach them how to, it seems as though you're feeling angry. Are you feeling angry? We're teaching them those social emotional skills and those adorable little faces that have the facial expressions that they can, start to identify the names and give words and titles to what I'm feeling, this big feeling inside that I'm having. And that way they can start to communicate to us, I'm feeling angry. So Brene Brown's research shows us in her most recent book, Atlas of the Heart. I think I've shared that with you all a million times. That there are, the research identified that there are approximately 150 emotions and experiences. Like, wow, if that's not overwhelming. And we are feeling emotions at every minute of the day. We have our, sensory nervous system that is experiencing all kinds of input throughout the day, whether we realize it or not. If we're blessed to have vision, and we're constantly seeing, unless we close our eyes. That's the only way that we can shut that off. We're constantly getting that input along with constantly seeing. That is also creating input that is processed in our brain to produce output and the emotional experience along with it. It's like our heartbeat. It's automatically happening. We don't have to think about it. Grouping emotions into positive and negative experiences. We talked about that just a moment ago, about that continuum. So sometimes we associate all of those 150 plus emotions and experiences into like, this is good, this is bad. We want to try to avoid that as much as possible and recognize that that's the human experience, and we welcome all emotions. What does it mean if the vastness of human emotion and experience can only be expressed as mad, sad, or happy? What about shame, disappointment, wonder, awe, disgust, embarrassment, despair, contentment, boredom, anxiety, stress, love, overwhelm, surprise, and all of the other emotions and experiences that define what it means to be human? This is a place and space, we talked about this earlier, about normalizing things, and we are normalizing the human experience and emotions. So where does the word come from? Emotion. So we have our origin of to X or move out, and then also, the feeling attached to emotion, of feelings moving through or out of us. So literally the word and the origin of the word comes down to feelings and emotions that need to move through or out of us. It's okay to feel the feels, then help them move through us. And so it's okay to welcome the feelings, even if it's hard or uncomfortable or awkward. And really, when we created language, and particularly thinking about this word and how it was derived from Latin origin, even some French input over. I really dove into the history of this. So excuse my nerdiness for a minute as I geeked out on the language piece. And how this word developed of emotion and really the meaning and the big picture behind it of that we were acknowledging over time and developing this word in this particular language, that emotions and feelings are that powerful. They really do need to move through us and out of us. And often we're taught to just stuff them down, compartmentalize them somewhere else, and not feel them and not move through them. What are some examples of big emotions and feelings? Whew. So the ones that we kind of associate to be sometimes more negative in our society or more complex or intense, I would have to say. Stress, anxiety, shame, overwhelm, uncertainty, grief, sadness, guilt, anger, and the list goes on. But those are just some examples. And what does a little one do in the grocery store when they feel sadness because mom won't buy them the candy bar? Oftentimes they might throw a huge fit. They might throw themselves on the floor and pound their fists or their heels, or, put their hands to their side, and they're moving and letting the emotion cry, move through them by tears, and maybe even scream and yelling out. And then we're told, no, 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 you can't do that. And how often when something makes you feel sad or any one of these feelings, angry, I didn't get that candy bar, I can relate to that, that you just kind of want to go outside and scream because our body needs that sometimes. It's okay, really, to have that release. So how do we find ways that are healthy ways to let that emotion move through, healthy and safe? Stressful situations cause both physiological and psychological reactions. That's key to remember. And sometimes we don't have the skills or strategies to deal with that in a healthy or safe way. Perhaps if I want you to think about this, we're all women, so this is very applicable, but think about this also as little boys. Perhaps if angry little girls were heard instead of silenced, there wouldn't be so many hurting women struggling to understand and love themselves. This person is a musician, and she wrote a cute, adorable, and powerful song about feelings and emotions for young children. So I totally recommend to look her up. And she's bilingual, so she just has such a good perspective on this. And just think about that. If you wouldn't have been silenced and heard when having one of these more complex feelings or something else, and maybe you were angry or stressed or whatnot at the time, and you were supported with not only talking about it, but allowing that emotion to move through, maybe we wouldn't be such a hurting world later on in life, little boys and little girls. It was really powerful to think about. The parasympathetic nervous system. All right, how do we activate this? I promise you have this in your body. And this is the way to help our body feel that sense of calm and allows the body to relax. So how do we get this thing going? So it's part of the body's autonomic nervous system and works with the body's sympathetic nervous system. So our sympathetic nervous system kicks in with the fight or flight kind of reaction. So our reaction to stress. And so the PNS works to support the body's ability to relax. Our nervous system is constantly in overload. There's tons of research out there supporting how our society, our world is just really operating in the sympathetic space of the emotional reaction, the fight or flight mode, a lot of times throughout our day, a lot more than our body is supposed to. And so that creates, of course, long-term health effects and chronic conditions, and impacts our mental health and well-being. And so not all of us have a nervous system overload, but many of us, I say that, many of us globally are just functioning in that space of nervous system overload and overwhelm, whether I'm overstimulated or just constantly in that fight or flight mode, and my sympathetic nervous system is just constantly activated, right? And so much of why we're activated is out of our control. So I might be overstimulated because I'm in loud, heavy traffic and it's hot and my air conditioner is broke and there's gas fumes and there's just like chaos and folks are cutting people off. And so all of these things lead to that overstimulation, all of this input that's coming through. It's kicking into my sympathetic nervous system, you know, where I might not know what to do next, or, you know, do I leave the situation? Do I fight in the situation? I'm in my emotional kind of lizard brain where all the emotions are just running through, and I'm not able to activate that parasympathetic nervous system unless I try something and a strategy to activate that, to get out of that space in lizard brain, as Brene Brown refers to it, and get into more of that higher cognitive functioning and thinking, activating the frontal neocortex in our brain, actually, that helps us make better decisions and have better insight and perspective taking. And so thinking about that situation, how much of that is out of my control? Like all of it. I can't control that there's like heavy traffic. I can't control that other people are cutting people off. I can't control that, like, you know, a car's exhaust is like really strongly. I give you that picture of traffic with the exhaust because smells, of course, are input to our body too, and contribute to our sensory experience and our overstimulation sometimes. The temperature, how it feels, is it too hot? My air conditioner is broke and I'm not comfortable. Is it super cold and my heater is broke and I'm not comfortable? And all of these things that can activate our sympathetic nervous system. And so how can we activate that PNS? How can we create new neural pathways to change our mindset? Because we may have, by how we were parented or raised, and then societal influence along the way, we already have neural pathways and connections created in our brain that tells us what to do automatically. And so is it that when I'm in that traffic situation that I'm so overstimulated, I'm in that fight or flight mode, I just always react in that same pattern where I get frustrated, I might beep the horn, you know, the list goes on of things that could happen. Or am I able to change that mindset? And am I able to activate the PNS, get out of lizard brain? And actually, as I practice that, I create new neural pathways to change my behavior and my mindset. And then sometimes, because it takes practice, if that happens again, I might not be in the space that I can do that or not. But what are those strategies? So the strategy is constant practice of awareness, self-reflection, and caring for yourself. So this like wraps up so much of our learning map of thinking about that deep self-reflection and learning about ourselves, resilience, care of self, and really thinking about how do we practice this most of the time and continue to practice so that we can support our body's regulation most of the time. Because again, we're human, we're not perfect, it's not going to be all of the time. So, what are those things that, again, what Ashley talked about back in January, I had to think of when the date was, of energy hygiene, what fuels us, what depletes us. So thinking of those constant ways that we take care of ourselves, of our bodies, our emotional and mental well-being, just really looking at ourselves holistically. How do we care for ourselves? So do we have meaningful relationships and connections in our lives and people that we can go to and vent and talk to? Thinking about, again, identifying the emotions and the power of storytelling. Language is our portal to meaning making, connection, healing, learning, and self-awareness, Brene Brown says. The power of storytelling culturally, how we pass down traditions, stories, languages, religion, and so much more through storytelling. This is a powerful way to create that bridge from I'm feeling this to being able to communicate what I'm feeling. And so much more. So the power of storytelling is real, and creating language and words to identify what all this is going on in this mind and body right now. Dancing, singing, and music, again, also gets our body moving and thinking and doing things in different ways, but also the cultural component. Many of our cultures surround dance, singing, and music that tells stories or allows us ways to connect with each other, build those relationships and connections beyond ourselves, and also ground us. It can have a meditative effect. It can also allow physically those emotions to move and process through us. When we engage in some of these strategies, whether it's, I really like to sing in the car, super loud with the windows up, of course, to Beyonce. And I sound just like her in the car. I really, you guys should come along for a ride sometime. Carpool karaoke, too fun. Or I'm singing a cultural song with my family or community. It creates a meditative effect. It's called flow. Sometimes when we're in the shower and all the best ideas come to us, and then I rush to work and I say, Hannah, I was in the shower and I got this really cool idea. And she's like, wait, what? No, I don't want to know what you're thinking about. It's because my mind and body is relaxed and I've now activated that flow state. Or if it's meditation that works for you. So also the point is, whatever works for you. And you may have ideas to add to this list too. Of course, cultural practices that we can connect to and connect to community and family and ground ourselves, breathing, meditation, prayer, spiritual practices, gratitude practice. That sometimes is helpful to some people. And with that, gratitude journaling or just journaling, sometimes that can be really a way to ground ourselves. Reflective practice. So in the space of work, engaging in reflective practice and supervision, finding ways to lift the heaviness off of our backs of situations that are going on and talk about the feelings that happened during those situations and lighten that load a little bit. Reframing your mindset, but this is different than toxic positivity. So not pushing someone or yourself to be okay, but rather finding reframes, finding the strengths in a situation versus hanging on to the challenges. But validating that it's okay to feel the feels, because we're staying away from toxic positivity. We want to validate, but reframe. Embracing and stepping out into nature, if that works for you. I should have said stepping into nature and then embracing your greatness, but also embracing nature too. So Sam, oh, he gave a wonderful presentation about embracing your greatness, but what is the curriculum that he was pulling this from? It may come to me. And Hannah, it may come to you too. I think you attended that training too. I might not think, I'll think about it later. Sorry. But it's pulling from that piece of even identifying your flaws and reframing that to be uniqueness. I heard someone describe themselves yesterday, and she said, I can be extremely detail oriented and organized to the point that it's annoying to others. And I felt like, oh my gosh, you can be detailed and organized. That's amazing. And so she may have had experiences over the past where someone has pointed that out or became annoyed or whatnot. But what an incredible strength. Embracing that greatness versus beating ourselves up. And embracing something someone told me a few years back in the work environment that I was overzealous. Well, that passion and motivation and drive makes me unique. And your experience with that may not be, a positive one, but actually I can embrace that and build on that and find ways to work with that. So embrace the great, unique person that you are. Maybe it's exercising for you, swimming, running, walking, yoga, weights, whatever works for you, sports, checking in on how we take care of ourselves and what we're feeding our body and having, a good option, having good nutrition, making sure we're eating, making sure we're taking care of those basic needs, sleeping, taking care of our hygiene needs and whatnot, is really like basic and foundational. And then also on that connecting to cultural practices piece, how do we embrace and honor some of our cultural foods or the foods that we may have been raised on? And affirmations may work for you or may not. And also remembering, that we can seek supports in more direct services with therapy, and having a therapist is a way to care for ourselves too, and a place and a space to, if you have a good relationship with your therapist, to kind of unload and have those non-biased conversations and learn even more strategies about yourself, or and how to support your body's regulation. Self-compassion and empathy. This one, give yourself a big hug. Oh my gosh, you deserve it. I am just like, when I think about how amazing this group is, or how powerful we all are together and individually in the work that we all do, it is just wonderfully, overwhelmingly mind-blowing. And there's like I can say a million things: outstanding, rock stars, amazing, awesome, but it like doesn't really capture it for me, the feeling that I have with that. And so please remember this, remember your greatness, embrace it, and embrace loving yourself and celebrating yourself and having empathy when something's hard or we do make mistakes. If we're not making mistakes, we're not learning and we're not trying. So it's okay. So have compassion and understanding for yourself, knowing the uniqueness that you bring. What would you tell a friend? I don't know. Did we talk about that today? Mindfulness, self-kindness and connectedness. Thinking of how I might support a friend in those areas. So be your own friend sometimes, or call me and Hannah or anyone on the on this call today or in our group for some of that friendly support. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of one another, or another person. And empathy can be described as an almost magical power to comprehend how others are feeling. I mean, did you know that you had magic in you? So just some reflections to kind of round it out. How do we get unstuck? How do we get out of lizard brain? And some mindset hacks and healing. So again, we talked about those, maybe, the example list of regulation strategies that may or may not work for you, and you may have some other things that you'd like to add to the list that works for you as well. But also, again, coming back to storytelling and language, naming emotions seem to bridge the gap between thoughts and feelings. Let me read it again. Naming emotions seems to bridge the gap between thoughts and feelings. How powerful is communication, talking about, and being able to attach language to the feelings. What about this reframe? I am this versus I am feeling this. So let me give you an example. I am angry versus I'm feeling angry. We all may have heard this reframe in our lives, but the power of hearing it in relation to all of this and connecting it to, I am not this, but rather it's a feeling that I'm having inside of me. I am not an angry person. I'm feeling anger, which is normal. And how powerful that language, and just switching the language, let alone identifying the feeling, is to opening the door and creating that bridge to move forward between thoughts and feelings, and really changing that mindset of, I am not this is not what will overcome me, but rather I'm feeling this. Storytelling and communication, knowing your triggers, knowing what activates you, again, knowing yourself, self-reflection, knowing what makes you unique. Reframe with compassion and empathy. So again, that's self-compassion piece. Try to get outside. Maybe nature isn't your thing, but it really can be helpful to hacking into that body brain communication system of thinking of it like a computer, hacking the normal pathways that's going through the computer and the old mindsets and patterns, to just stopping and changing, even sometimes taking a drink of cold water or taking that really deep breath can really activate that PNS, that parasympathetic nervous system, and get us out of lizard brain. Move if you can, or if that's something that you like to do, and find things that you like to do with movement. Is it free flowing dance? Is it more structured? Is it a walk? Little mental health walk might be kind of fun. Or, is it something different for you? So finding connection sometimes, maybe reaching out to someone to talk to and fill up your cup, and caring for yourself to be your most awesome self and try your best. Peter Goose says, our mindset is the one thing that is keeping us from healing and getting unstuck. And it also happens to be the one thing that we do have 1% control over. We may not have control over the outside factors of the world, but we do have control over our mindset and how we move through. Again, I know we have talked about in the past, in several areas of acknowledging the global trauma we've all been a part of, which I feel like I skipped a slide somewhere. Maybe not. Okay, good. But we have experienced this global trauma together, and many of us and many of the families and children that we work with experience adverse childhood experiences and experience trauma and many really heavy things. And so many things are outside of our control in situations like that, or thinking of the world's crises that are happening, and it can be really, really heavy. But we do have to remember what is out of our control, how we can, if we have capacity to support, and what is within our control, so that we don't always take on so much of that compassion fatigue. We want to be compassionate and empathetic, but also take care of ourselves too. So it's a balance that we have to practice. It's not something that I can say this works for everyone. And that's how to balance all of these heavy things that we do deal with on this amazing path and journey of life. But remembering the traffic situation, how much is out of my control? How much is in my control? What can I change about that? And so we'll do some takeaways in just a moment, but I just wanted to end here so that we can unshare the slides here, the presentation. So remembering, if you've seen the movie Inside Out, and how that movie, it was just really great for children especially, but also adults, to like identify emotions, and this is okay to feel, this is not okay. But a big takeaway from that story was there's joy. We want to keep Riley, the girl in the story, super happy and just, you know, moving along and wonderful. Again, the easier emotion to deal with. And joy was like, sadness, you know, we don't need that. We don't want sadness to creep in. We don't want anything else to creep in. So let me control everything here. And let's just push these other emotions down. And in the end, we found out through their journey that in order to feel joy, we had to feel sadness. No one can go through life feeling amazing all of the time. It's normal to feel down every once in a while. Without the hard times, how would we know when the times are good? So, what are some thoughts or takeaways that you all have?
I thank you, Lindsay, for changing. I wrote it down. I'm very big on emotions because I feel like I was very emotionally unstable my life. And it wasn't till I was an adult that I started understanding like the power of feelings and like it is okay. So I make that a big topic for my home visits. I want parents to just become very aware at their child's, you know, very young, like when they're a newborn, all they do is cry, but then very quickly we start seeing this different ways of communication and sounds, and I really want families to like wrap around what this form of communication is, and it's a way of their baby expressing themselves to them. So I really start this talk very early because emotions are affected in every aspect of parenting, right? Like discipline and this and all these things. So I have a bunch of different ways that we address, you know, emotions, but I like what you said about instead of saying, I am angry, it's really starting to talk about and teaching the toddlers to say, I am feeling this. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling silly. I'm feeling angry. And I just think it just changes a whole perspective, because it doesn't give that child the carry that identification. I'm anger. That all day, every day. Nope. Tomorrow I woke up. I'm anger, because that's what I said. Instead, I'm feeling angry, and then 3 hours later, you're like, I'm feeling happy. So you never stay stuck in that place of emotion. Like you said, it moves through your body and then it moves out. And I just love this new way of being able to explain this to families, because I just think as a society, we just don't understand emotions. And I see families getting so uncomfortable when we start talking about emotions, and they just want it to be, well, we can just be happy or sad. Like, that's it. And it's fine to be sad, but be sad. Just be sad by yourself, and don't put that burden on others of your grief or your sadness or your, those feelings, but only put the happy and joy and bring me those feelings. But, those are like what society wants us to have. So something that I was thinking about is I have these little cards, and I'm not going to change my thing, but I have a whole other thing on my board, and I'll just start putting up different feelings and just being like, ooh, like, what is this? Like, what do you think this feeling is? And like, how are you feeling about that? And, the one that always gets me is silly. To me, silly is fun. Like, to me, that's like, oh, we're being silly. But a lot of moms have said, when I've shown them, like, what about like silly? Like, how does that make you feel? Moms are like, it depends on the day. And if I'm having a bad day, then I have no patience or time for silliness. And I'm just
Wow.
like, yes, isn't that like, we can just think that silly is just, oh, it just solves everything and we can be silly. But when moms are really vulnerable, or just parents in general are vulnerable, and they say, like, I'm going to be honest with you, Bobby, it annoys me when my child starts being overly silly. I'm like, validated. Absolutely. We can all feel that way. It's like a sober person being around somebody who's, drinking. They're being silly. They're intoxicated. They're being silly. You're sober. You're annoyed by that behavior. You're just like, oh, I can't right now. Like, so I just think that bringing that to the forefront and having families acknowledge that that's a valid feeling. Just because society has told us that being silly is positive doesn't mean that we have to fall into line with that. You can be annoyed that your child is being silly. That is a valid, feeling. So I just literally just wrote like 3 notes, like, of stuff. And I just want to bring this whole new perspective of emotions to families. I really just want them to be able to be emotionally like balanced. So there's
Oh,
my
yes,
soapbox
that
today.
emotional intelligence and being able to teach, and engage little ones into the social emotional learning piece, but also supporting that early relational learning piece and connecting and building relationship. But how many of us, myself included, were not taught this in-depthly about emotion. So as we're supporting the little ones learning, parents and families and caregivers and teachers and all of us are learning too, along with that. And I think there's so much power in that. And instead of saying, here are strategies to push those feelings away, here it is. We are human. All of those feelings are here. All of those feelings are normal. We welcome all of those feelings. But here's our way to kind of activate that PNS and kind of get back into a different mindset of thinking, but allow that emotion to feel the feels. It's okay. Go ahead, Tamara.
I really like that you did the first like circle security activity in the beginning, because I think when we're talking to parents and even for ourselves, it's really important to go back to what was our foundation,
Yeah.
and how do we help families see where they came from so that they can build a stronger foundation for their child when it comes to emotions and feeling things. Because I was just kind of like you. I grew, my family setting was difficult at times, and I was a very angry kid. And so, you know, it's like, and she got in a fight, I had to pick her up from the D home, like all these things. And they're wondering why did these things, why are you misbehaving? Because I don't have a place to just say I'm angry. I'm angry that my dad's a drug addict. I'm angry that we're barely surviving. I'm angry. And instead it was like, let's just, like, we're not going to talk about that.
We're fine. Everything's fine.
Everything's fine, right? And we're not going to ask for help, and we're
Mhm.
just going to keep going, right? And act like it's not there. So it really is important for families to kind of like have those conversations. I like how Bobby brought the little things, because it doesn't have to be for kids.
Yeah.
You don't have to have the little things for kids. You can have them for adults, right? And pull them out and be like, look, what does this mean to you? And how did you deal with this when you were a kid? Or what did your parents do with that emotion? Because that's how they're going to make that change for their child.
Oh my
And
gosh, yes.
yeah.
Imagine talking about that like to teachers too, when they're dealing with a really challenging situation in a classroom,
Yes.
and having that self-reflective moment with teachers too.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think that even for me as a parent, I've had to work on it. When my daughter gets emotional, because she's like an emotional kid, I have to walk away and come back, because it does something inside of me, and I feel guilty about that. But she's crying, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this girl's crying, and I'm getting nervous, and I'm like, why don't you go in your room for a minute and come back when you have words to talk to me, because I can't help you unless you talk. But I know I can't deal with that emotion. So that's why I think it's just, even we can do it in the classroom, but we can also send things home with families and be like, think, we're doing this in the classroom. We're talking about emotions. Let's send you some questions home to self-reflect about your upbringing and emotions. And so, you know, maybe they can send something back, and we can kind of bring the families in, even if we're not in a home visiting kind of environment.
Yeah, perfect. Circle of Security calls it shark music. My little shark.
Yes, that's what I tell the families. What's your shark music? And they
Yeah,
laugh. They're like,
right.
ah.
Yeah, so those of us that haven't taken Circle of Security, I'm gonna see if we have a shark emoji too, because I really have to go extra. Everyone, oh, see, sometimes I know disappointment, maybe fish, maybe a fish. Yeah, we have a fish, but not a shark. Okay, we'll pretend that's a shark. So if you've not taken Circle of Security, that's totally okay. So what she's referring to is that kind of like, uh-oh, something's happening here, and there's something activating inside of me. There's an awkwardness, there's an uncomfortableness, maybe even anxiety or anger that's coming up for me because I don't know how to deal with these feelings. Like Bobby was mentioning, the extra silliness. I don't know how to deal with that, so I just get mad. Or, oh, my child's feeling shameful. That's awkward for me, and I don't know how to deal with that. There's something activating in my body. That's what shark music is. So the more we can self-identify with like, okay, something's activating here. I don't know what the heck's going on, and have that awareness, I can make a choice. I can literally rewire my brain. I can start to practice that. I can change the way I react in this situation, whether it's I'm going to activate my PNS by what you just said. I'm going to remove myself from the situation for a minute. I'm going to take a parent timeout. Okay. Because often it's the adult that needs a timeout, not the child. I'm going to take a little timeout here. I'm going to be in the classroom. I'm going to call someone for coverage real quick, because I'm just going to take a little breather, a little break, and come back to it. Or I'm working on a really hard report and I'm like getting agitated. Oh, okay. I'm recognizing that shark music. I just have to use the puppet. This, I promise y'all, this wasn't planned.
The fact that you had that handy though is what
Disgusting, right?
No, now I want a puppet. Now I'm like, that's when I talk about shark music, I need a puppet.
Little mouth moves. Amazon, y'all. Oh my gosh. Uh, truly, thanks, Hannah. Thanks for, if you can imagine what my office looks like. Um, anyway, yeah, I mean, imagine how we can really rewire and change the trajectory of some situations if we just have that ability to self-reflect and just pause for a moment, do what we need, and kind of change the way we are, who we are being, how we are being. Reframe ourselves, say, it's okay, girl, it's okay to be angry, it's okay to be upset, it's okay to have that uncomfortable feeling. Acknowledge it, feel it, and now how can I move forward with a healing step? Hey, y'all, I have one more thing to share with you before I go. I know I've talked way too much today, but if you'd like to join in with a little mood booster, turn your camera off, leave it on, dance a little bit, just have a little bit of fun, go into the weekend reframing your emotions.
I got this feeling inside my bones. It goes electric wavy when I turn it on. Off from my city, off from my home. We're flying up no ceiling when we in our zone. I got that sunshine in my pocket, got that good soul in my feet. I feel that hot blood in my body when it drops. Ooh, I can't take my eyes off of it, moving so phenomenally. Come on, like the way we rock it, so don't stop. And under the lights when everything goes, nowhere to hide when I'm getting you close. When we move, well, you already know. So just imagine. Nothing I can see but you when you dance, dance, dance. Feel good, good creeping up on you. So just dance, dance, dance. Come on. All those things I shouldn't do, but you dance, dance, dance. And ain't nobody leaving soon, so keep dancing. I can't stop the feeling. So just dance, dance, dance. So just dance, dance, dance. Come on.
Oh, how about that transition? I actually did it this time. I kept going. I was like, this is such a banger. We gotta get that high note. We gotta. Thank you all so much. So much gratitude to you all. Olga says, love this song. When I worked in HR at the public schools, we did a competition and dance to this one. It was phenomenal. Oh my gosh. She's giving us ideas for our in-person soul train.
Yeah, we did. It was fun. It was so fun.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that song too. It's so great. I just wish the most amazing weekend day, everything to you all. So much gratitude for everything that you do. Truly, I can't express it always from my heart, the emotion that I feel and respect and love for you all. And gratitude I have to everything that you do each and every day. So thank you. I'm turning it over to Hannah. We'll see you all at the in-person. Take care.
Thanks, Lindsay. I'm definitely in the Friday spirit right now. Oh my gosh. It's gonna be hard to work the rest of the day, but it's fine. It's fine. Okay, you guys, we're gonna do just a quick little fun thing. So I'm gonna throw it in the chat and I'll share my screen. So feel free to click on the link. Oops, there we go. We're gonna do a little play personality quiz. It's super short, should take you about maybe 3 minutes. So if you just scroll down and you're gonna click here to take it. I'll give you guys a couple minutes. Feel free to turn your camera off. This is just fun. It will give you who you are at the end, so you can read a little bit about which kind of play personality you are. So I'll stop sharing.
All of the above.
It's hard. I did it a couple times and I got different ones. So I'm like,
Oh yeah,
all of it.
All of it.
So feel free to turn your camera off just a couple minutes on this, and then we'll get to some announcements, but enjoy. I should have had Lindsay play our music right here. That would have been a good little pump up for this. And whenever you guys finish, if someone wants to give me a little thumbs up or if you need more time too, no biggie. Awesome. And you guys, this is in your Padlet too, in case you want to use it with a big group. It's kind of fun to see different people's personalities. Kind of brings us back to that disc training we did of who we are, but who we are in play. So that's kind of fun. I was the director this time, which surprises me. So I guess I wasn't the little boy cheerleading today. I guess I was the one trying to use the hose to get that bottle. But it's a fun little activity for sure. Ooh, storyteller, nice. That's a good one, honestly. Thanks, guys. That was just a fun little activity I thought we could do. And then, of course, the evaluation is going in the chat whenever you guys have time today. And then, okay, some fun stuff. So for those who can't make it, please don't worry about this. We're going to be sad you're not there, absolutely. But you'll be getting an email from me still with some information. But our first thing is we thought we'd do something a little fun. I think we're going to do it on our last day. We're calling it a passion project. So for each one of you, and I'll send out an email with some more details, but we want you to think of something that you're passionate about that you'd like to share with the group. So it can be a formal little presentation, informal, you can just talk to us. It's just like 3 to 5 minutes, so nothing crazy, no pressure. But maybe it's something that you incorporate play into, maybe it's just something with work that you want to share with the group. Something you learned, it could really be anything. So I'll definitely send an email, but no stress, it's just for fun. And then we will be meeting at Hotel Chaco. For those who are familiar with Albuquerque, it's right across from Sawmill, so it's kind of in our Old Town district. Super fun because it is walkable to a lot of cool stuff. So when we're done, if you guys want to venture out, absolutely can. Same thing as in January, we'll have all the meals provided for you guys. And we'll definitely have some good snacks this time around. So I'm excited about that. They're probably going to be the exact same times. I'll send out a little agenda as well. And in the next week or two, start that first day at 2, probably end at 5 and have dinner at 5. The second day, 9 to 5. And then that last day, probably 9 to 12 with the lunch in there. So for those who need to head out and drive back, you'll have some time that Friday. So we won't try and take up all of your day there. And then let's see. I think that's it. All the fun stuff. You'll be getting emails from me for sure with some more details, where to go. Those who booked a hotel room, you're going to be staying at Hotel Albuquerque, which is directly next door. It's affiliated with Hotel Chaco. So it'll be fun. Our meeting space is in there, and it's a pretty fancy hotel. So that's going to be fun. We have a lot of like really cool activities planned. So we are going to learn some stuff, but we want it to be welcoming and just really full of reflection and restoration for you guys. So I think it'll be a fun little retreat. And there's also a bar on top of Hotel Chaco, whenever, it's called Level 5 if you guys want. So yeah, if you have any questions or have any concerns, please email me or Lindsay. We're happy to answer. But you guys, thank you for our last virtual session. We did it, 8 sessions down. It's crazy, and one more in person, but let me know if you guys need anything and take 10 minutes back into your day. Thank you guys for being here. We'll see you soon. Bye, guys. We did do it. Yes, Olga.